These large full-size SUVs have followed the same formula for many years, and that's body-on-frame construction, tons of interior room, and a big gas engine under the hood. Case in point, this, our long-term Chevrolet Tahoe. But things might be changing in this class, as electrification is coming in the form of a new contender that's adding a pop of color to the landscape. This is the redesigned 2023 Toyota Sequoia in TRD Pro form, which is the most off-road capable version of the Sequoia that you can get. Now, what makes the Sequoia different from every one of its competitors is that it's got a hybrid powertrain under the hood, while everything else in this class relies solely on gasoline or diesel. We're going to find out if the Toyota's hybrid powertrain can keep up with the Tahoe's V8 both on and off-road, and then we're going to see how the Toyota compares to the Chevy in terms of utility, technology, you know, all that good stuff. So, without further ado, hey, remember when I mentioned long-term? What that means is that the Tahoe is a part of our long-term fleet, and that's where we keep a vehicle for about a year and try to put 20,000 miles on it to see what it's like to live with day to day. So to keep up with the Tahoe and all the other members of our long-term fleet, check out our long-term blog. You'll find the link in the description. We're going to kick things off here in the dirt because both of these vehicles feature off-road packages. Our Tahoe is a Z71 and the Sequoia is a TRD Pro. And that means that both vehicles come with part-time four-wheel drive, a 4 high and 4 low via transfer case, and all-terrain tires. That's right about where the similarities end. For the Z71, that's pretty much all you're going to get as far as off-road equipment goes. You also get a front skid plate. For now, the Z71 is the best off-roading vehicle that the Tahoe has to offer in its lineup until Chevy one day decides to make a Tahoe ZR2. Here on the TRD Pro, a lot more off-road equipment. Starts with these 18-inch BBS forged wheels, and in the back here, remote reservoir shocks at all 4 corners, Fox shocks with internal bypasses. As we come around to the front here, it also has its own skid plate and a beefed up front stabilizer bar. Now, there's one more thing that the TRD Pro has that the Tahoe doesn't, and that's some advanced traction control for off-road environments. So it comes with a multi-terrain select system, which allows you to pick between different environments, and crawl control, which functions as cruise control going up hills. You can easily control your speed as you're going up obstacles or hill climbs. So on paper, this Toyota should be much better off-road, but again, questions still remain about this powertrain. Now, Toyota calls this the iForce Max. It's shared with the Tundra TRD Pro, and it combines a twin-turbo V6 and an electric motor that outputs a total of 437 horsepower and almost 600 pounds-feet of torque. But this is also a powertrain that we have yet to test off-road, so we have some questions about how it's going to do once the pavement ends. Off-road, what can be even more important than raw power is dexterity. Can you actually apply that power evenly? The V8 in the Tahoe, it might be down on power against the Sequoia, but it's a known entity. We kind of know what it's going to do off-road. But this hybrid powertrain is still a bit of a mystery to us. So we have a little bit of a challenge here. We're going to put both of these vehicles through some off-road obstacles, and the first one is a hill climb, where dexterity and throttle control are super important. So here in the Sequoia TRD Pro, I set it up for war. It's got everything on. We're in 4 low right now. The multi-terrain select controller is set to rock. The rear differential is locked. Yeah, let's send it. Oh, these ruts are big. So far, so good. Pretty good articulation out of this TRD Pro. Now we're getting to the part where the wheels are starting to reach for traction a little bit. Power delivery is actually a lot more even than I was anticipating. Throttle isn't touchy at all. It's doing a really good job. The Toyota actually puts the electric motor in front of the transmission as well, so you're getting the power from both the engine and the electric motor. It's a lot better than I thought it would be. We're kind of struggling for grip right now. I can feel a tire in the air. Oh, but it's doing great. And we made it up. You know, I was a little bit worried that this powertrain with the twin turbo V6 like this would be a little bit peaky, but I was actually able to really just kind of even throttle my way through that whole thing, and underneath me, this 4-wheel drive system just sort of figured it out. I mean, I guess all the apprehensions that I sort of had in that one hill climb sort of go away because it actually turned out to be really easy to apply the power evenly in this vehicle. It's gonna be a tough act for the Tahoe to follow. Let's head down the hill and try that one out. So this first part of the hill is pretty easy. It's this next part here where we think this vehicle might have trouble without the locking rear diff. And we barely made it up the hill and we got to back it out already. All right, we're gonna go again. Yeah, it just won't hook up.
The Tahoe's traction problems forced us to abort the hill climb after 2 attempts when it became clear it wasn't going to make it up that hill.
Another thing that really surprised me is that the power delivery in this actually felt more uneven than it did in the Toyota. And the Toyota was actually able to just kind of stay in the same sort of spot on the throttle and get really even output, and the traction control underneath me sort of helped me up the hill. Here in the Tahoe, it actually felt a bit more peaky, so I was kind of outputting power. I had trouble being really smooth with the throttle. So I guess a well-calibrated hybrid system in this sort of environment can really kind of do wonders. For our next off-road test, we're here in a sandy wash. I have the Tahoe now in 4 high in off-road mode, and we're gonna send it to see how it makes it through the sand. Ooh. First, I want to start by saying that driving kind of any vehicle through this kind of environment is fun, but the Tahoe can be a bit of a handful. This thing isn't exactly what I would call nimble. You might see that I'm doing a lot of work with the steering wheel here to keep it pointing in the right direction. The V8 putting out enough power to get me through it for sure, but one of the things that you kind of like to do in this environment is to be able to use the throttle to kind of steer the front of the vehicle a little bit more, and it's not quite giving me enough power to do that in some spots, so we have to work the wheel a lot. I would love to just be able to hang the tail out. This is still great fun. Can't believe this is a job sometimes. All right, now we're back in the Sequoia, and as much fun as I was having in the Tahoe, I don't know if you can tell, but the smile much bigger here in the Toyota. Not only does it have more power, so I'm able to kind of use the throttle here to really get the rear end around these turns in this wash, but it also feels a bit more like this vehicle is, you know, instead of getting really stuck down in the sand, it does a little bit more of kind of gliding over it. Just like in the Tahoe 4 high here, but in the multi-terrain select system, we've chosen sand, which is giving me a bit of looseness. Traction control is of course off to really let those rear wheels spin, and yeah. This thing also not agile, you know, also still kind of feels like a bull in a china shop, but oh, a lot of fun. So we were impressed earlier with the Sequoia's powertrain dexterity on the slow stuff, but now that we're going a little bit quicker, still also really impressed by this powertrain. You got to give like the engine a second to wind up. So as I'm coming to this corner here, I get on the throttle a little early, but then there we go. We can get the rear end to really rotate around. It's a great engine. Any sort of hesitation you'd have about a hybrid being able to perform, you know, off-road, I think this kind of puts those to bed. Sounds pretty good too. Here in the Toyota, things just feel a bit more refined all around. This powertrain, even though again it's the hybrid V6 instead of the V8, actually feels a lot more punchy. This thing has a lot more power overall, and this thing can actually scoot from 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 6 seconds dead, and that makes the Sequoia feel pretty lively on the street. Even things like passing maneuvers at highway speeds happen really easily, and beyond the powertrain, the steering, the handling, the ride quality all feel just a bit more refined in the Toyota. Even with these all-terrain tires on here, I would say that you don't get a lot of tire noise or slap, but what you do end up getting is a lot of wind noise off that roof rack, especially at highway speeds. One of the other advantages of a hybrid powertrain is of course fuel economy. Now, still a big SUV, you're not going to get great fuel economy out of this thing, but on our loop, this vehicle did 20.1 mpg versus 17.8 mpg in the Tahoe. And while that gap might not sound too big, that's a gap of about 10%. And one other way to think about it is that if you have the Sequoia, you're going to save 10% on gas. And if you're driving a big SUV a lot of miles, that can add up pretty quickly. In our Tahoe, definitely feels a bit more truck-like than the Toyota. You get a bit more body roll in corners. It doesn't quite feel as composed. The steering has a bit more weight to it, but at low speeds, that can be kind of a hindrance to getting the vehicle whipped around. Just all in all, you know, it seems like the Toyota is maybe a step ahead on everything.
Our Tahoe features the base engine for that vehicle, and we've been unhappy with how the smaller V8 performs, especially on the highway, where it seems to run out of power for passing maneuvers and tight merges. If we could do it over again, we'd probably opt for the larger 6.2-liter V8 that offers greater power. But this also serves to highlight the fact that the hybrid powertrain in our Sequoia TRD Pro is the base powertrain for that vehicle, and in all forms, it still offers significantly more power than even the larger V8 in the Tahoe, along with greater efficiency.
The Toyota, even with that hybrid powertrain, can tow just over 9,000 pounds, and here in our Tahoe, as configured, it can only tow up to 8,200 pounds and 8,400 pounds maximum. So another check mark there for the Toyota. And then one more thing about the Tahoe that has really honestly bothered me since we've had it in our fleet is that it doesn't have adaptive cruise control. And at this price, it feels like it's really something that should be standard. When we bought the Tahoe, there was a chip shortage. We had some trouble sourcing the vehicle and finding one that was optioned exactly the way that we like. But that being said, we would have had to pay even more for it. And that's a feature that's standard on vehicles that cost 3 times less than this. So even though the Tahoe is a bit worse to drive and a bit under-featured when it comes to safety, there are a few ways that it strikes back against the Sequoia, and that starts with cargo room and the back seat. We really enjoyed the performance of this hybrid powertrain both on and off-road, but opting for a hybrid means that you also have to add a battery, and on an SUV like this, there's very limited places that you can put it. It's got to be able to go off-road, so you can't put it underneath where it might get dinged up. So Toyota has placed that battery underneath the third row, and that leads to some serious compromises when it comes to the cargo area. Our Tahoe has 25.5 cubic feet of cargo room behind its third row, and as you can see, it fits 4 of our bags, 3 carry-ons, and 1 check bag. So behind the third row of the Sequoia, 11.5 cubic feet. It does expand to 22.3 cubic feet if you slide the third row forward, but if you do that, that makes the third row unusable for passengers. So we're gonna try to fit this stuff in with the third row still in a usable spot. As you can see, our check bag has absolutely no chance of fitting. Let's try the carry-ons. 1, 2, and 3. Now, I think that the door will close with all these in there. And yes, so this cargo area, good for carry-on size luggage, good for some grocery bags, but you're really not gonna fit any larger items behind this third row. So in pretty much every measurable way, the Tahoe's cargo area dominates that of the Sequoia. It's got way more room behind the third row, behind the second row, and behind the, you guessed it, the first row as well. The other problem that we have with the Toyota is the way that this rear cargo area is packaged. So I can drop these third row seats thanks to these handy buttons right here, but as you can see, they don't really fold flat at all. That battery is sitting right here, and that has elevated these third row seats so that you don't ever really get a flat cargo area in the Sequoia. While in the Tahoe, if you drop the third row and even the second row, you get this wide expansive area, easy to fit large objects. The placement of that battery also results in compromises for the Sequoia's second and third row passenger areas as well. So climbing into the second row of the Sequoia, the first thing you notice is that the floor is pretty high. My thighs aren't actually touching the seat, and that means that these seats aren't really that supportive or comfortable for longer trips. As you can see, they're also very flat here, so I feel like if the driver were to turn left or right, I might slide right out of them. Decent headroom here in the second row, but there's this really big hump right here, and that means that climbing into the third row from the second row through this little channel right here is a bit of a challenge. Doing so actually makes my good knee hurt, which is never good. Fortunately, these seats do fold and tumble forward, and they make this nice little channel to climb in. You have a few steps as well, so you're not stepping on any wires or anything. However, the problem is when you do actually make it to the third row, things aren't that great. As you'll notice, when you land here in the third row, the floor is even higher. So my knees feel like they're up in my chest, and that's just really not a good way to sit for any extended period of time. You're also not very good on headroom. As you can see, if I sit up straight here, my head actually touches the ceiling. And even though the third row has power recline, I can't actually make it back to where the seat goes because my head has run straight into the ceiling, so not really useful there. This is where Toyota's kind of weird packaging decisions with the Sequoia really come to bear. In every other vehicle in this class, it's the second row that can slide forward and back. Here, it's the third row, so I know that the passenger in the second row, even if they have plenty of leg room, they couldn't move up to help me out here, and all this goes is forward. This is already all the way back, and it's just, this is not a full-size interior. But here in the Tahoe, things feel jumbo sized. You can tell just by looking at it. In the second row, I have so much more headroom. There's just a lot more vertical space overall in the Tahoe because that floor isn't brought up by the hybrid battery. It stays very flat. We actually measured here from this low point in the roof down to where the floor is, and you get about 7 inches more room in the Tahoe to move around, and it also makes the cabin just feel a lot more airy. Also here, these second row seats, they slide forward and back, which is, you know, the way that things should be. And for easier ingress and egress, these seats have a powered release that will fold them down, and they can also tilt and fold forward all the way. But you don't even really need to do that because there's so much room that I can just kind of get up and climb in the back here. Once you do land here in the third row, things are much better in the Tahoe. This third row doesn't recline, but it doesn't really need to. It kind of sits naturally in a comfortable position, so I don't really miss it too much. Again, a lot more legroom and headroom in this third row, and I also appreciate that the seat bottom here is a lot higher off the floor, so that when I'm sitting, I don't feel like my knees are tucked into my chest. Overall, a much, much better place to be in the third row here in the Tahoe than the Sequoia, giving another win to the Chevy. The Sequoia shares a lot of interior elements with the Tundra, so it's no surprise that up here things feel very truck-like. Looking around this interior, you're gonna see a lot of TRD Pro badging and branding everywhere. TRD Pro on the seats, TRD on the steering wheel, TRD Pro on the floor mats. This styling, just both inside and out, you'll either like it or not, depending on your tolerance for ostentatiousness. Now, the nice thing about having a truck interior is that you usually end up with a lot of storage and things like that, and definitely true in the Sequoia. A really big center console bin here, and also this little kind of storage compartment right here, and you're also gonna get some nice storage spaces in both front doors as well. Up front here, we have this very nice 14.1-inch infotainment screen. We also like that Toyota in its native navigation uses Google to power its navigation results. So if you search for something through here, you're gonna see things like its rating and the phone number, some other information that's useful. But if you don't wanna use that, you have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as well, same as you'll get in the Tahoe. And the other thing that we like is that when you use these smartphone mirroring systems, they take up the whole screen and they also look pretty big and beautiful. If there is a tech feature of the Sequoia that we don't like, it's the wireless charging pad. So it's placed kind of down here underneath the front storage. That placement is fine, but it's pretty vertically oriented, and I've noticed that when I put my phone in here, it doesn't actually charge all that often. It kind of will charge for a second and then turn off. I even tried it with the case on and off my phone, so I don't think it's that. If this was maybe leaned back a little bit further, it could make better, cleaner contact with the wireless charging pad, but as it is, it's not really all that functional. Here in the Tahoe, things are a lot simpler, both stylistically and in execution, so you'll like this interior, I guess, if you really like black everywhere. These seats, though, I will say they are more comfortable. The ones in the Toyota, they're actually pretty flat on your back. These offer more support. The center console bin here, still pretty large, though we still like the one on the Toyota a bit more. It's got a bit more functionality. A wireless charging pad up here as well. The Tahoe does have a powered steering column, which the Toyota doesn't. There is a weird kind of storage space here next to the screen, and we weren't quite sure what it was good for until we figured out you could fit a pair of sunglasses in there. One of the things about this center console that I haven't really been able to get used to is the shifter. So instead of a traditional shifter down here, they've moved it up on the dash, which is something that I usually like because it saves you space down here and you can have more storage and things like that. But the placement here, you kind of have to pull back on all these switches to use them. I find myself not really grabbing the right one sometimes. It hasn't really gotten more intuitive even as I've been in this car for longer. Screen up here, 10.2 inches. Again, not as big as the one in the Toyota, but one of the things that we do like about GM's infotainment system is that it's very simple and easy to use, and their Google integration goes beyond just filtering in destinations. They actually use Google Maps as their native navigation. So even if you're not using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which connect wirelessly here as well, you're gonna get Google Maps and just log in with your Google account to get all your places loaded right in. Value is not a strong suit for any of the members in this class, and these two vehicles are no exception. The Sequoia TRD Pro, just over $80,000 on the sticker, and for a non-luxury SUV, that price can be tough to swallow.
Our Tahoe Z71 costs about $10,000 less on the sticker than the TRD Pro, but if you wanted to option up the Tahoe to try to match up with the Toyota, adding on the bigger engine and additional equipment, it ends up coming a lot closer on price. And even then, it still can't match the Toyota on safety equipment, as adaptive cruise control isn't even offered on the Z71. Chevy still only puts that feature on the Tahoe's two highest trim levels.
Believe it or not, these two vehicles actually have the exact same Edmunds rating of 7.4. The Toyota on the strength of its performance and powertrain, and the Tahoe because it has excellent utility, tons of room in the second and third row for passengers and cargo, something that the Toyota really lacks. So if your focus is more on the driving experience or going for more off-road capability, you'd probably lean for the Toyota, but if you plan on carrying more than 2 passengers regularly, or you have to carry a bunch of stuff, hard to get away from the Tahoe. Now we should note that this Toyota powertrain, super impressive off-road, and it really answered a lot of the questions we had about how Toyota is tuning its hybrid powertrains for those environments. The upcoming Tacoma TRD Pro, Land Cruiser, and most likely the 4Runner will all come with versions of the iForce Max hybrid powertrain, just with a turbocharged 4-cylinder instead of a V6 under the hood. And the Sequoia TRD Pro's impressive performance today has me more excited for those 3 vehicles than I was before I drove it. Until next time, so Wong. I like this intro. More emotion. You have a cool visual effect. And then a very orange car.
Let's just say without further ado, let's get Wong with it.
I'm not doing that.
Damn it!